To be successful in life, it helps to have three elements. One is to focus on your strengths. The second is to create an identity for yourself. And the third is to have an enemy. Hello again, everybody. I'm Eli's dad with Project Eli, where we educate, lead, and inspire. I'd like to invite you to join Eli and me as we discuss these three elements. Now, Eli, I'd like to go over some things that you need, N-E-E-D, to know. Now, did I say need? I meant need, K-N-E-A-D. When we define need, we see that it means to work into dough, as in making bread with your hands. Further suitable synonyms are pummel, work, pound, squeeze, shape, and mold. Now, let's hope that we don't have to pummel, pound, or squeeze. Let's make our focus work, shape, and mold. Now, one area of achievement in life is measured by the amount of dough or bread that you're able to make. Let's call that the business side of the balance sheet. There is, of course, the personal side of the balance sheet and the spiritual side of the balance sheet too. Now, these two aspects of life are not measured with a number the way the business side can be measured. For example, I've had 2 wives, not a particularly good number. I only have 1 son. In this case, that's a very good number. On the business side, I have mentored a fair number of sons and daughters and given them the opportunity to advance their positions, for lack of a better word, with useful experience and wisdom. Now, I'm not vain enough to believe that I was anything more than a middleman in this endeavor, because my mentors were outstanding. The only accolade that I will accept is that of being a good student and following direction well from the right people. Now, the number one lesson that each of my mentors endlessly championed was the importance of productive habits. Similarly, they were all very quick to not associate with people possessing harmful habits, distracting habits. Their thought was, why should I spend the most valuable asset of all, time, with someone that has bad habits? Well, I'm going to tell you a couple of stories today about focusing on your strengths, creating an identity, and also having an enemy. The first one is when I was just out of college, moved from the East Coast to the West Coast to California, and landed myself somewhat of a teaching job and also a basketball coach. Now, the first year I was the assistant varsity coach, which really meant I got to sit down and learn from the varsity coach, which I did. I learned quite a bit, in fact. You know, when you first start out in anything, you always have to have that identity, and I was more of a student than I was a coach at this point. So I was watching and learning, implementing, teaching the basics that I knew. Well, a couple years later, the next year after that, we had a new varsity coach. His name was Bruce, and they needed somebody to coach the Frosh Soft team, to be the head coach of the Frosh Soft. That was me. I accepted that responsibility, and boy, was I excited about that. Now, this particular high school was in kind of a very affluent area, and the parents of the kids were all successful, all right? The kids came from successful backgrounds. That's the good news. The bad news is that the main sports in this particular town were football and baseball. Basketball was something you did in between those two sports. So during the summers when kids weren't in school, they weren't practicing basketball all that much. They were focusing on their football and on their baseball. So I had that challenge, but I did have a few good athletes. So when I went through the first practices, you know, I saw that the kids were not particularly outstanding dribblers or particularly outstanding shooters, but they were some good athletes. And I sat down with Bruce, the head coach, and asked him, you know, so tell me, what do you expect? What do you want me to do? I kind of look at this 2 ways that I can look at this. Number one is I can take the time and just spend the time drill practicing on shooting and passing and so on and so forth. You know, we're not going to win a lot of games because the kids aren't all that super skilled in that area, but it will help make them better for when they go to varsity. Then you'll have some better players for yourself. Bruce said, yeah, that's one way to look at it. He said, let's look at it another way. Tell me, what is it you're going to teach the kids? I said, well, I'm going to teach them how to shoot, I'm going to teach them how to dribble, that type of stuff. He said, is that all you're going to teach them? What about the other half of the game? I said, oh, you mean defense? He said, yeah, that's half the game too. And I went ding, 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 ding. So what did I have? I had some outstanding athletes that weren't basketball players, that had good motivation, a good mindset to win, and they did have some strengths. And defense is half of the game. So I thought about what I was going to do, and I focused on defense. So what kind of a defense could I come up with? Well, there was one in college that I was taught that was not very popular, but I always liked it. It was called run and jump. And even when I was in college, and I wasn't a particularly good player in college, I sat on the bench, I would get up for the national anthem, sit down, and that was essentially my game career. The highlight of my basketball career was being called for goaltending once in a game, that, if you want to call that a highlight. But anyway, I knew the game of basketball, and I took notes when we were going over run and jump because I knew I wanted to be a coach. Well, what you do is the first thing you have to do is you have to tell your team and go over with your team the strengths and weaknesses and point out to them, look, guys, do we want to win? What do you think kids that are freshmen are going to say? 13, 14-year-old kids. What do you think they're going to say? Yes, coach, we want to win. I said, well, this is how we're going to win. We don't have a tremendously great amount of good shooters here. You all can see that, right? They all nodded. But we do have good athletes. So we're going to work with that. And the way that we're going to work with that is if we take twice as many shots as the team that we're playing against, that gives us twice as many chances to win the game. Does that make sense? Yeah. So, all right. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to take advantage of your athleticism, and we are going to steal the ball constantly. That is who we are. That is our identity. Why is that an important thing to do? Because when kids are playing basketball in the backyard, what are they thinking about? 3, 2, 1, and hit the shot at the buzzer, I win. They're not thinking about playing defense. They're thinking about scoring the shot at the buzzer. So I had to change their mindset and had to get everybody on board with that. Now the next thing we had to do was we had to take the situation as it was and take our best athletes, our quickest kids, and put them in a position where they could steal the ball. And this is where the run and jump comes in. The key thing is when you have a dribbler, you want to force him to a sideline and use the sideline as another man, and then have a guy come over, put his hands up, and create a trap. And then everybody rotates, and when the person that's trapped throws the ball high in the air, that gives the guy a chance to come and scoot in and make the steal. Believe it or not, there are a lot of steps that are involved in doing that. It's not like, okay, this is what you do, go do it. It's not like that. It takes drill, practice, rehearse. Every single day we would go and we would work on one-on-one, controlling the dribbler. Then we go 2-on-2. Then we go 3-on-3. So we put all the little pieces together. We chunked down to the smallest components. By the way, are you seeing similarities in the success formula here? You take your big picture, you chunk it down into its smallest components. You build the right mindset, right? Like I said, kids are not thinking about, oh boy, I get to play defense. They're thinking about how I can score 30 points that night. You've got to get the right mindset, the mindset that wins. That's what you want to focus on. You want to focus on your strengths. And that's what we did here. And then as far as creating an enemy was concerned, well, as far as basketball is concerned, that's kind of easy because the team that you're playing is the enemy, all right? So we took that team that had very little offensive skills and we created an identity, and we were known as the team that steals the ball all the time. And what we did was we won 14 out of 15 games. And before the season began, Bruce said to me, Coach, if you win half of your games, I'll be satisfied with that. Well, we, myself and the team, were not satisfied with that. We worked very hard. We focused on our strengths. All right, that's one story. Let's talk about another story. Let's talk about Project Eli. Now, I'm old. Hello, I'm giving you a news flash here. All right, I'm not a puppy anymore. I don't know all that much about social media. I don't know about filming. I don't know about editing. I don't know about creating thumbnails. What I do know is I have some knowledge, basic principles that I'm in a position to share with Eli and with all of you. That is my intention here. So at first I thought to myself, and everybody does this, I thought to myself, you know, it's going to be kind of hard to create a YouTube channel because I don't know this, I don't know this, and I don't know this, and I don't know this. How am I going to do this? And then I said to myself, because I was writing material for Eli that I wanted to share with him before I decided to do this YouTube channel. And I said, you know what, go back and read your own stuff, all right? I mean, you wrote it. It's true, it works. So what did you write? You wrote that you want to focus on your strengths. Focus on the things that you do well. Get to the starting line. It will create momentum. That's what I did. I got to the starting line. I created some momentum. Now, I still needed people to help me with the filming, with advice on social media, on the editing, on the thumbnails, on the whole structure. So what did I do? I started knocking on doors. I'm a sales guy. I knocked on doors, so I started talking to people. I said, look, this is what I do. I'm looking to have this, but this is what I need. Are you interested? And let me tell you, I got no, 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 no. I got a yes that became a no. I got a yes that started and then quit. Does that sound familiar? Does that happen to you in your life also? But then I found a gentleman that said, you know what? This is good stuff. I can help you with this. I want to lock arms with you. I want to help you with this. All right. So he started working with me. And then he brought somebody on board that had YouTube experience, that was creative, that knew how to make thumbnails, that knew stuff about social media. He knew stuff about social media also, all right? But they worked together to help me produce this channel. I focused on my strengths. My strength is giving out the information, all right? So and as far as creating an identity is concerned, I'm Eli's dad. That's the position that I want to speak to you from. I'm talking to you from the heart and not from the keister. I'm talking to my son. You get to eavesdrop while I teach him the lessons that I've learned. That's my identity. And as far as the enemy is concerned, well, I'm a human being. I have a couple of different enemies here. One of my enemies, as far as mindset is concerned, is the coaster. A coaster should be something you put on a table to prevent a stain from happening. A coaster should not be a lifestyle. And I look around and I see so many people that just coast through life, that go from distraction to distraction, distraction, and they whine and whiz and moan about, oh, I can't have this, I can't have that. All right, they're not focused. They coast through life. They spend their time killing time instead of making it productive time. That's one enemy. And to be very candid with you, the other enemy was I had watched a number of other pundits on YouTube, and I was listening to them and watching them, and I saw that it was mostly esoteric crap that they were putting out there. Now, I know how much work it takes to go into making one of these videos, so I would never make a comment and say, boy, that's a bunch of you-know-what, because the people are trying. So, but what I could see was an inferior philosophy going out there, and the other thing I saw was people complicating something that's simple. Why take something that's simple and make it more complicated? The best teachers that you had in school were the ones that took a subject that was somewhat complicated and compared it to something that you know to make it simple for you. That's what we do here at Project Eli. The other thing we do here at Project Eli is we give you blueprints, a step-by-step how-to. This is the way you go about doing it. Instead of just giving you general, you know, it's a great idea to do this, it's a great idea to do that. Yeah, well, I know it's a great idea to do that. How do I do it? That's what I want to know. That's what a mentor will do for you. That's my intention with Project Eli. So focus on your strength, create an identity, and have an enemy. These are three things that will help you get from where you are to where you want to be. And creating that enemy gives you a why. It gets your insides going, right? And when you have an identity, you're somebody. Everybody wants to be somebody. You're somebody. And when you work with your strengths, you're focusing on the things that you do well. Why focus on the things that you don't do well? Focus on the things you do well. Work with those. Get others to help you with the things you don't do well, because they're strong where you're weak and you're weak where they're strong. Be smart about it. Anyway, that's our lesson for today. And because we will never end a meeting on a philosophical note, let's all get out there and charge! I'm Eli's dad.